Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a great weekend. Mine was pretty much dodging raindrops at the house and doing honeydew chores, since this was the first weekend I hadn't been fishing in a while and won't be going again till the boat comes back from dry dock in about a month. So I'm kind of homebound right now. But we got a great show for you today. We've got a sad story right off the bat. We're going to talk about these deputies out in Los Angeles that were ambushed. As of this morning, they're still alive, struggling for their very lives in a hospital in Los Angeles. And we're going to talk about that, all the things surrounding it, some of the craziness that happened beyond just their shooting, but what happened afterwards, and kind of a status of where we are as a country right now. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Bernie, that is the Burn Man. Bernie Sanders has come out now, and there's some reporting that he is concerned about Joe Biden's electability. He's nervous about it, and hold on to your hats. Joe Biden is not progressive enough. And I'm not surprised, but I don't know how much more progressive old Joe could be. We'll talk about that. And then if we get time, we're going to talk a little bit about Bill Maher. I mean, he knows a riot when he sees one. And on his show this weekend, which I never watch, I used to be a fan of Bill a little bit, but he's just so over the top with Trump derangement syndrome that it's hard to watch. But every now and then he actually comes up with something a bit logical. And he was talking to a CNN reporter over the weekend and essentially said, I'm not down with all this property destruction. So we'll hear from Big Daddy Unlimited Studios, otherwise known as BDU. And they're a sponsor of our show. To check them out, all you got to do is go to the sponsorship link. Where you find that is in the description of the show, no matter which medium you're watching it on, whether it be Facebook, good morning, howdy, how are you? Whether it be across our YouTube channel, spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks, or if you're watching on our streaming service through America's Voice News Network, which is you can download a free app on your iPhone, your iPhone and your Android. We got Apple TV, Fire Stick, Roku. We're on Dish Network, Channel 219, and Pluto Network, all with America's Voice News. Check us out there. No matter where you're watching our show, if you look above the video, you'll see a description to the show. And in that description is a link to our sponsorship page, Big Daddy Unlimited. Check them out. You not only help yourself to tremendous factory direct savings on anything to do with Second Amendment, and boy, do we need Second Amendment issues now, man. It is getting crazier by the day, and we're going to talk about that. But for 99 cents, virtually a free trial, 1 month, no obligation. Check it out. Firearms, ammunition, tactical gear, swag, anything to do with Second Amendment, thousands of items, direct factory pricing to you. And after that, it's no obligation, but $10 a month. And we get a part of that. $4 goes to help us spread the word here at John Martin Talk. So we really appreciate you checking that out. One of our listeners, by the way, and she knows who she is, Denise, howdy, how are you? She said she signed a friend up to it as well. So it makes a great gift, I suppose, for Christmas. But thank you very much. Anyway, we're going to start with a article. It's from an AP story, I think. 2 California deputies shot in apparent ambush and anger. Protests follow. So what happened, and you see the picture, we're not going to play the video, it's a bit graphic, but this is an actual photo, I guess, of security cam type photo of looks like a male suspect shot 2 Los Angeles County deputies at point blank range through the window of their car, of their police vehicle, shot them both in the head, and a man and a woman, and they're in critical condition in the hospital, fighting for their lives literally as we speak. So let's get into this article. Compton, California. The shooting of 2 Los Angeles sheriff's deputies in an apparent ambush prompted a manhunt for the shooter, reaction from the president, protests outside the hospital where the wounded deputies were being treated Saturday night in California. So I got to thinking about this. What about the term incitement to rioting or violence, or whatever? Because you've heard this from the left to people on the right all along. President Trump is supposedly inciting violence all the time, right? Calling for violence, going back to his original rallies when he would tell them to beat up protesters or knock them upside the head, that kind of thing. And some of that, criticism, I think, potentially is justified. But the left has been inciting violence for decades now. I mean, going back to the 60s. Just look at the last few years, even before Donald Trump. Do you remember when that lady got shot out in was her Gabby Giffords, I think's her name, got shot when she was running for Congress? Now, thankfully, and she spoke at the DNC just recently, and I'm glad she's making a recovery of sorts. Probably never be a full recovery, but she's speaking in depth in sentences for the first time. And I don't like what she had to say, but the fact that she was able to say it is truly a blessing. But do you remember what the rhetoric was coming out of the left then in the mainstream media? They were saying that it was Sarah Palin's fault because Sarah Palin had put targets on when she was talking about taking congressional seats, taking them from Democrats or remaining in Republican hands. She put a map out that showed districts and put a target on it. Now, you could argue whether or not that was the appropriate thing to do, but do you remember she was literally blamed, she being Sarah Palin, for the shooting of Gabby Giffords because she had put a target out there. Now, like I say, you could certainly debate that, but the left has been inciting violence for a long time. The NFL this weekend, and we talked a little bit about this last week. Go check out our podcast. Go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page. Like it, share it with others. YouTube, America's Voice News, like I told you earlier. All of those sites archive our show. But we talked about the NFL Friday after the Thursday night game opener. But the NFL is sanctioning violence, are they not? And I told you, and I didn't. I lived up to it. It was hard because there were some interesting potential games on, even on DirecTV, which I get. They offered the NFL Sunday ticket for free so you could watch all the games. I didn't watch any of them. It was hard not to, in one sense, because I'm a huge football fan and could use the break from everyday grind of reality right now. But I refuse, absolutely refuse, and it's not just the protest. That's one. If you want to hear my feelings about that, look at our podcast. But what I said Friday, I'm standing by. I refuse to knowingly put money in the pockets of organizations that sponsor terrorist groups. Algorithm out there, bear with me on whatever Facebook page I'm on, but because algorithm is one of the most dangerous or powerful guys, and I love algorithms, so I don't want to get on the wrong side of Al. But the reality is that Black Lives Matter, the actual organization, is a Marxist organization hell-bent on destroying the United States of America. It just is. And these organizations like the NFL are not only siding with them with slogans and allowing the protest, but are actually donating money to these causes. And that I got a problem with, because make no mistake about it, you are supporting violence, incitement of violence. I mean, Kaepernick you start talking about people to blame for the shooting of these 2 officers. Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, Colin Kaepernick holds some responsibility. This is from back when he had a tryout with an NFL team a couple years ago. He's wearing socks, and if you can't really see it, they're a cartoonish depiction of cops as pigs. I mean, that right there sends a message. So the incitement of violence has been happening from the left, and we're going to give you some more culprits here in just a moment. But on with the story a little bit. The 31-year-old female deputy, and she's a mother, a young mother, and a 24-year-old male deputy both underwent surgery Saturday evening, Sheriff Alex Villanueva said in a late-night news conference. Both graduated from the academy 14 months ago, so they were basically rookies, a little over a year on the job. And I just want to tell you right now, police officers out there, first responders, and I am not abdicating them from any responsibility of any violence that's happened. But the reality is that is a minute portion of police officers. So I just want to say thank you. From John Martin Talks, all of us here behind this BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited, our sponsor, I think I can feel safe to speak for them. I want to thank our police officers, period. Because my dad used to say this, you know, when you start talking about corruption and all that kind of stuff, he used to say there are no more corrupt politicians, and you could put police officer in that, than there are corrupt barbers. The difference is the damage they can do. If you have a corrupt barber, you're going to get a bad haircut, maybe allow Nancy Pelosi to come in there without a mask, something, blow dry her hair illegally. But a corrupt cop can do a lot of damage, and there are some out there, and we need to do whatever we can to weed them out. You know who hates corrupt cops the most? Good cops. So, you know, I'm not taking anything away from the reality of that. But the reality is most 99.9% of police officers, and maybe even more, are just trying to protect the public. So I thank police officers very much. Chief out there in LA of the county sheriff's department, who has come under fire during recent protests over racial unrest, expressed frustrations over anti-police sentiment as he urged people to pray for the officers. Well, that's one thing you can guarantee you we're going to do, is always praying. You know, the hardest thing, can you imagine what it's like to be a police officer? And now, especially time really, but especially now, and leave for your shift and look at your wife or your husband and your kids and realize that might be the last time you actually see them. I mean, all of us could say that to a certain extent, because, I mean, driving is dangerous and all that. But police officers literally know that every time they go to their job, there is a direct possibility that they or attempts and actual assassinations have we had in the last 3 or 4 years. Quite a few. This is just one of several. But the chief said, it pissed off. It dismays me at the same time. The department shared a video, and it does me too, by the way. The department shared a video of the shooting in a Twitter post showing a person open fire. I've seen the video. It's pretty horrendous. That picture we showed you is a real snippet from that video. Through the passenger side window of the patrol car. According to the chief, the gunman walked up to the deputies and opened fire without warning or provocation, the department stated. So I thought about that. And that's not exactly true. And I'm not trying to dispute the account of the department, but it says here, without provocation. I would say that is not true. So I wanted to make sure I was correct on this, so hear me out. Look up the word provocation. I've looked it up. It says action or speech that makes someone annoyed or angry, especially deliberately. Now, I'm not saying that these police officers, had any provocation to being shot. I'm saying there was provocation that led to this shooting. And I'm going to give you a few examples. We're going to play you kind of back-to-back videos. These are of Black Lives Matter, and they happened over the course of the last year or so. And I want you to listen to this first one, and they literally are calling for cops to be killed, and they tell you when they want them right now. Check it out. That's good enough. I think you get the picture. That was in the streets of New York City, by the way. So you have people literally protesting, if you want to call it that, and saying, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? It goes without really being criticized much at all. The mainstream media downplays it. You know, the riots are a myth, right? All that kind of stuff. And then if that wasn't enough, we had this video also by Black Lives Matter. And that was in the one before was at least at night where they might could hide. This is an open in the sunlight here. They are bold and they tell you what they want. Check it out.
Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. Pigs in a blanket.
Marching at the state fair.
That's good enough. Think about that. One of the things, if you're new to the show, you might not have heard this before, but certainly if I say it, it bears repeating. One of my axioms here, John Martin Talks axiom, is take them at their word. In other words, take progressives at their word. One of the good things, I guess, of Trump derangement syndrome is the left now, especially the hardcore progressive left, the militia, like which is Antifa and Black Lives Matter. You don't have to guess where they stand. They will tell you exactly where they stand and they don't need any provocation from you to be provocative themselves. And they're telling you in these two videos, and there's multiple other things, you know, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. And as I showed you that picture earlier, or Billy Bob did, he's my psychic side. Great, helps me with the video and everything else. He doesn't talk much on the show, but he chats quite a bit behind the scenes. He has a Twitter handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. And our Twitter feed, by the way, is another place where you can see our video. They're about a day lag time in getting them up there, but we put all the videos up there. But I tell you all the time, take these progressives at their word. They want the cops to be killed, and they're celebrating it. In fact, it gets here in L.A. The video sparked thousands of reactions talking about the video of the cops being shot, including from President Trump, who responded, "Animals that must be hit hard." Now, he talked about this in a couple of rallies over the weekend. Donald Trump, as I said last week, man, he is really back. He's feeling on fire. He's feeling it. Of course, now he had an indoor rally out in Nevada last night. I had two rallies in Nevada over the weekend. One was at an airport and the other one was in a closed facility. And already this morning, they're going to spread the virus. They're going to spread the virus. Yeah, the virus is spreading. The virus that we need to worry about is this Trump derangement syndrome. And the virus left. That is the virus here. The coronavirus is real, and yeah, you can say all kind of different things about it, but the coronavirus affects all. It's not prejudice, right? But we have a lot of prejudice in this country right now. But most of it is, if not all of it, is coming from the hardcore left. I saw somebody say this on TV the other night, and I can't remember who said it, but they were talking about like, hey, a Ku Klux Klan guy, the Imperial Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, couldn't do a better job of destroying lives than Black Lives Matter is right now, man. But I like how it says protesters gathered. Let me back up a minute. This, and I'm going to expand on this in a moment, but this cannot stand. What's happening right now, the assassination of police officers and everything else, this cannot stand, and us remain the United States of America. It cannot stand, and I'll expand on that in a minute. But the protesters gathered outside the emergency room at the hospital. This is even sicker in some ways than actually shooting the cops. And I'm not downplaying shooting the cops, and I'm praying for them in my heart and in my head every minute that they survive. But protesters gathered outside the emergency room at the hospital where the injured deputies were being treated. First of all, let me just tell you, these are not protesters. If you're a protester protesting, police brutality, whether I agree with you or not, it's another thing. You're right. But understand this. These people that I'm about to talk about here are not protesters. They are criminals. They are thugs. They are traitors. They are trying to bring down the United States of America and bring about progresso world, which is not going to be good for any of us, including people who support Joe Biden. It's not going to be good for you. I guarantee you, you are not going to like Progresso World. But these are not protesters, and I resent, and I'm going to call it out, the fact that the media continues to call these people protesters. They're not. They're absolutely not. But here's what they're saying. Here's what the LA Sheriff's Department put out in a tweet. The protesters, as I say, you know what I think about them, blocking the entrance and exits of the hospital emergency room. So they went to the hospital where the wounded deputies were and blocked the emergency room exit. I mean, thank God the police officers were already in there being treated, but they blocked it from other people. So you're blocking an emergency room where people need to come for treatment. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a crime against human. I'm telling you, they got to be arrested and put down with extreme prejudice. Let's put it that way. It said, but they were at the emergency room, and this is what they were yelling. And they're talking about them, and they're talking about the police officers. We hope they die. We hope they die. So they're literally blocking the emergency room and trying to disrupt the hospital while doctors are working frantically in there to save these police officers' life. There's actual, quote, protesters saying we hope they die, referring to 2 LA sheriffs ambushed today. This is part of the tweet from the Department of Compton at hashtag Compton. Do not block emergency entries and exits to the hospital. The Sheriff's Department tweeted, people's lives are at stake when ambulances can't get through. Think about that. We hope they die. And let me tell you, there are many, many celebrities, politicians, and all that are to blame directly for this type of thing, for this type of shooting. I'm going to tell you one right now. LeBron James. Now, I'm not laying it all on him. Others like him who could actually make a difference in bringing calm to the situation are throwing gas on the fire. We're literally hunted every day. So here's a guy saying black people in America are hunted every day. He said, every time we step foot outside the comfort of our homes, we're hunted. So he's telling, now this guy's one of the most influential stars as far as athletics in the world. This guy is known around the world, and how many young black kids, especially black males, look up to LeBron James? Whether they should or not, it's another story. But they do. In fact, they do, and he knows that they do, and they're counting on it that they do. I mean, he makes more money off of fans buying his shoes and apparel than he makes in the NBA playing basketball. So he knows where his bread is buttered, and he knows that he's an influential person. In fact, he's gone out of his way to be that type of person. And I'm not saying he shouldn't be, but the message he's sending out there that black men, especially, is what he's talking about, are being hunted, systematically hunted in America. And he's also referred to the police, and he's multiple times he said this. I've been showing you just this past week, he had a shirt on that said, vote or die. So in other words, and he's talking about Joe Biden. If you don't vote for Joe Biden, you're dead. So he literally is telling black America that every time you leave the comfort of your home, you are being hunted. So do you think that might have an impact on someone thinking about shooting police officers? You know, there was another cop involved shooting, by the way, in Lancaster, I believe, Pennsylvania, over the weekend, where a police officer shot a guy who was coming at him with a knife. And they've been rioting. I don't have all the details, but apparently they've been rioting and looting there in response to that. Black Lives Matter, right? But so this is what LeBron, there's no leadership on the left whatsoever. None. Joe Biden can't even do a comprehensive sentence on it. But think about this. If there's this myth out there, to the office of presidency, this is going to get better, that the rioting will go down and get better. I can tell you right now, that is not true. The rioting will not only not get better, I predict it will actually get worse. That they've already talked about that. There's plans for that. Don't take my word for it. As I tell you all the time, just listen to what these progressives, they will tell you. I've played this before, but if I play it, it bears replaying. This is Kamala Harris just a few weeks ago on a late night television talking about the riots, the protest, if you will, and not only the need for them, but the fact that they need them and she supports them. And I'll let you listen and we'll come back and talk about it. Check it out.
Major cities across the United States. I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I
Right,
had
that's right.
for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not
now-
going to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not, this is a movement. I'm telling you, they're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
Clear.
And we should not. In other words, they not only should they not, so she says we, so she is with these protesters, these rioters in the street, these people that are gunning down cops. She's with them. I'm going to put them all in a basket and label. If they can put us all in a basket of deplorables, I can put them all in a basket of shame that they are bringing to this country and death that they are actually. So you got the lady that is potentially going to be the next president, either by hook or crook, the next president of the United States, because Joe Biden is an empty shell. We've talked about that. And she is saying that the protests are necessary, they're needed, they're going to continue, and we need them to continue even after the election. So this idea that somehow that if Biden gets elected, he's going to bring peace to the world. Show me any evidence, and you can chime in on Facebook. We're on there live every morning at 8 o'clock Eastern time. It would say we're rebroadcast along America's Voice News. Good morning to you guys out there on Facebook land. Howdy, how are you? Tell me where I'm wrong about this. Show me an example of where the progressives didn't double down. They always take everything to extreme. So if Joe Biden perchance actually were to win, God help us if that's true, don't you know, and I can show you countless evidence of this, so the media can't say without evidence, where the progressives, if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. The best example I can think of, and I'm not even about the issue, look at abortion. And abortion started out kind of, we got sold this bill of goods from the Clintons about it being safe, legal, and rare. And then, of course, it was going to expand to that. To now, the progressives are literally celebrating the fact that you can abort a baby right up to the third, and as Rush Limbaugh says, the fourth trimester. Whereas old Governor Northam in Virginia says, the baby's born, we'll make it comfortable, have a little conversation about it, and then whack, off with his head. I mean, so if that's not an extreme example, I don't know what is. So that, and there are many, many more. They will always take it to the extreme. So believe me, if Biden were to get elected, the rioting will double down. They'll double down on it, man. But let me just read you something about that. I posted about this shooting in California over the weekend, and I also made some comments on it, and I want to read them right now. This is about what happened to the deputies and what happened with the protesting, so-called protesting, and we hope they die. And I wrote this on Facebook, and I just want to say it aloud. This cannot stand. A reckoning is coming. We have one last chance to man the political ramparts. November. If we don't, we will have to man the real ones again. We got one last chance to man the political ones, or we're going to have to man the real ones again. I'm going to give myself a John Martin spot on for that, because that's exactly where we are with this. This cannot stand. We cannot allow this type of behavior to stand and expect to be a constitutional republic. It really wouldn't matter. Think about this. It doesn't matter what your system of government really is. If you're letting your law enforcement officers be assassinated and then people literally saying, we hope they die, and there's no consequence for that, there's no country in the world under any system that could survive, let alone a free system like we have, let alone keep it, can survive if we let that stand. So I'm always saying, you may not have heard this if you're new to the show. First of all, glad you have. You're welcome. Where you been? You're in the right place now. As one buddy of mine says, the truth starts now. But one of my sayings is, if we don't man the political ramparts, we're going to have to man the real ones again. And man, that would be a shame, because the price for our freedom has already been paid. It doesn't mean we're going to have to pay it again, but it's already been paid. We've had the death of people from every walk of life, every race, creed, or color has sacrificed blood, sweat, and tears for the freedom to them to yell, we hope they die. What an abuse of power that is. Anyway, we're going to move along. I just want to say again that I'm sure many of you join me. I can't imagine anyone not, but I guess if you're chanting, we hope they die, I'm praying that they will live and be prosperous. All right, we're going to move on to a Washington Post story. And this was a couple days ago. And then, of course, the Sanders campaign has responded to this in a Politico story, basically kind of appears to be true based on anonymous sources. And this is that Sanders shows concern over Biden campaign. So Bernie is saying he's a bit concerned that old Joe might not make Democrat except when it suited him, right? Bernie's a total sellout. He just is privately expressing concerns, talking about Bernie, about Joe Biden's presidential campaign, according to 3 people with knowledge of the conversations, urging Biden's team to intensify. It's when you think of Biden, do you think of the word intensity? I don't think he's capable of intensifying. I mean, he's capable of scouring like that, but he's not capable of intensifying. Intensifying its focus on pocketbook liberal voters. So Bernie is saying that old Joe is not progressive enough. Is he worried that he's choosing the wrong horse? Well, he's got a horse in Biden. It's a Trojan horse, and there's room for you in it, Bernie. As a matter of fact, I expect you and Ocasio-Cortez and a few others to come popping out of that horse if it ever gets inside 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. God help us if it does. But make no mistake, Bernie is pushing that horse, that Trojan horse. Sanders, the runner-up to Biden in the Democratic primary. I like how they say that, run, and he was. But let me just tell you right now, Bernie Sanders, and I know some of you Bernie bros are going to melt when I say this, never intended to be president. Never even tried to be president. All you got to do is go back to the last debate that he had with Joe Biden. Go back and watch that, Bernie bros, and tell me that was a guy trying to win that nomination. He had one chance, and that was to take Biden out. So, give him a pass. Then a few days later, he came out and endorsed the dude, right? Kind of like Hillary Clinton. He didn't even take on Hillary Clinton, if you think about it, till maybe towards the very end. And then it was kind of reluctant, if that. Bernie Sanders was about feathering his nest, selling his books, getting another house, everything but being president. Because Bernie Sanders probably could have been the nominee, but any chance he had, he squandered, and I think he did it intentionally. So all of you who are Bernie bros, I don't think he ever wanted to be president. But it says Sanders, the runner-up to Biden in the Democratic primary, has told associates that Biden is at serious risk of coming up short in the November election if he continues his vaguer, more centrist approach, according to the people who spoke on condition of anonymity. Always anonymous. So I feel for you, Bernie, in that regard. But centrist approach. So they're saying that Biden is taking a centrist approach. How so, Bernie? I mean, of course, he's backtracking on everything. But how about the fact, how centrist can you be? There were no centrists. There were no moderates. Let me just clarify this. in the 2020 Democratic primary, there were no centrists or moderates, say maybe Tulsi Gabbard. Maybe. And I say maybe because she voted to impeach the president. She did a flim-flam. Was just trying to play it. So I'm not as big a fan of Miss Gabbard as some conservatives are. But a centrist approach. I want to show you a video. We've played this before, but this is from the 2020 debates when there were still like 100 people in the field without evidence. But this one there were 10 on the stage at a time. And the question is asked about whether or not you would support free medical care for illegal immigrants. Now, that's not how they worded it, but that's what it means. And every one of them, and old Joe, and Joe went like that. Check it out.
If your government immigrants. Okay.
Woohoo! Woohoo! Understand all this code language in there. Undocumented illegal immigrants. That's what they are. That's what the code says they are. The actual law says that they are. Of course, you can be blocked from Twitter for saying, I guess I'll get blocked. But the law actually calls them illegal immigrants. Okay? I'm not trying to get here. If I was living in Guatemala, I'd be trying to get here. There's no doubt about it. But the reality is that what every one of those Democrats on the stage, including our buddy Joe Biden, was saying, and Trojan horse Biden with Bernie up some part of it, we're all saying that they believe in giving free medical care that American citizens don't have in general to people coming here illegally. Now, what do you think would happen if that ever came into be? We would have an open border and a welfare policy and no borders, no walls. What did Antifa say? No USA at all. That's what we had. So there are no moderates party at the leadership level. None. They're just various degrees of hardcore leftists, and Joe Biden is that. I mean, think about it. Joe Biden is for defunding the police. What's that? Billy Bob tells me that that's not true. Well, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. He's for redirecting the money for the police. So LA out there where their police chief is upset about what's happening out there, Biden's your guy. He's not defunding you. He's just taking like 200 and some million and redirecting it, or redirecting $1 billion from the police department in New York City. How safe does that make you? Back to California. Did you see the latest article that for the first time in basically ever, but certainly in decades, more people are leaving California than going into California? More people are leaving, and they're trying to make it like it was about the fires. It's not about the fires. By the way, my hopes and prayers and thoughts are with everybody in harm's way in those fires and the people our responders trying to put them out. So, I'm with you on that. Also, we got a hurricane that looks like it's going to hit somewhere along the Gulf Coast, New Orleans sometime late tonight or early tomorrow. Hurricane Sally, I think. Cat 1 or 2 by the time. So we're praying for those as well. I do believe in the power of prayer. And as I say, I'm praying for those police officers shot out in LA. But make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, there are no moderates in the Democratic Party at leadership. Show me somebody in leadership that is a moderate. There aren't any. They're just varying degrees of leftist. And Joe Biden, I messed up my paper. There we go. The perils of live TV, I guess. The senator, talking about Mr. Sanders, has identified several specific changes he'd like to see, saying Biden should talk more about health care and about his economic plans. Health care. He's already said he wants free medical care for immigrants, illegal immigrants, right? And here's another thing. I've said this before, but of course, if I say it, it bears repeating. Make no mistake about it. Every one of the Democrats, including Obama, is for single-payer government total control of health care. I don't care what they said at the debates. The only reason they haven't come out 100% for it is they know it's not a winning thing, and so they're trying to gum up the system so bad. And Donald Trump is basically the only one standing because the Republicans in general aren't standing. They caved, right, with McCain, the greatest senator the Democratic Party's ever known. Donald Trump's the only thing really keeping us from having a total takeover of the government health care, total takeover of our health care system. He's the only one really standing in their way. Because make no mistake about it, every one of those Democrats is for single-payer, government-run health care. Do you really think that the website that they spent like $1 billion on to one of Obama's cronies, that it was just a coincidence that the thing crashed? What they're trying to do, ladies and gentlemen, is make it so bad that they say, hey, we might have been, some Democrats will say this, well, I was for, private insurance, but the only way out of this mess now, we got no choice but to have government take it over. That's what they've been pushing for all along. You can take that to the bank, although you might be taking it to the bank. That's true. So there is just no idea about that. And then about his economic plans, he has no economic plans. Biden has already come out now and said, of course, he's backtracked a little. Everything he says when the poll numbers come out, he goes the other way. When it comes to the economy, that he's going to shut us down on day one, basically. We got to re-shut down, right? How do you think that's going to work? And Bernie said that Biden should campaign more with figures popular among young liberals, such as Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The arm's length away from Joe Biden. I got to give her credit for that. But Fahaz Shakar, who is the Bernie Sanders' former campaign manager, said Senator Sanders is confident that Joe Biden is in a very strong position to win this election, but nevertheless feels there are areas the campaign can continue to improve upon. He has been in direct contact, talking about Bernie, with the Biden team and has urged them to put more emphasis on how they will raise wages, create millions of good paid jobs, lower the cost of prescription drugs, and expand health care coverage. So, Bernie, if that's what you're for, I got a thing for you. Maybe you should have run for president. What? I mean, really run for president, not that fake sellout campaign you did in 2016 and repeated even more so in 2020. Maybe you should have actually tried to win the thing and knocked old Biden out. But one reason why Bernie didn't do that? He's a perfect little communist. It's way too much work. Bernie, you got to keep in mind, and I know some of you snowflakes out there are going to hate me for saying this, but it's just a fact. Look it up. Bernie Sanders ain't never had a real job, man. He was basically a couch surfer until he was like 40 years old. And then he somehow got, ran for local politics, won, and went on up to where he is now. The guy's never had a real job. Trust me on this. The Senate is about as cushy a position as you could have. Now, I'm not saying every senator. There's some that probably work their behinds off. But you can just coast as a senator. And Bernie's an independent, man. He just coasts along. Bernie Sanders want to be president? Way too much like work to be president, man. Biden is determined not to play into attacks, this according to the article, from the Trump campaign seeking to cast him as a radical or a socialist. Well, he is a radical and a socialist. That's what he is. Nominee has distanced himself, talking about Biden, from elements in his party calling for defunding the police. No, he just changed. He's just redirecting it. And what did Kamala say? We need to reimagine it. Implementing a single-payer health plan, I just explained that to you, and banning hydraulic fracturing. He was opposed to fracking. Now he's for it in Pennsylvania and but is still against it on any public land. Sanders supports the latter two policies. Biden is. Let me just tell you what Biden's doing. Joe Biden. Let me check my time. I'm doing okay. I'm going to play this one last video. We're probably out of time. Biden is doing whatever the teleprompter tells him to do. If you don't believe it, look at this video where Brett Baer of Fox News is questioning one of Biden's top people, and the guy just will not answer the question. Check it out.
Or used a teleprompter during local interviews or to answer Q&A with supporters.
Brett, we are not going to engage. This is straight from the Trump campaign's
But yeah,
talking
they're
points.
using
And
it.
what it does, Brett, is it's trying to distract the American people.
They're using it. They talk about it every day. Can you say yes or no?
That's because they talk about it every day, Brett, because they don't have a coherent
well, you have
strategy.
an answer. Yes or no?
Brett, they talk about it every day because they don't have a coherent argument for why Donald Trump deserves re-election, deserves 4 more years. We know that he lied to the American people.
That's good enough.
We know that he has not.
So the guy's not going to. Brett Bears asked him, has Biden ever used a teleprompter to answer questions? And the obvious answer is yes. We've seen it. There's ample evidence that he's doing that. Hopefully the debates will expose this, the fraud that he of our show. It's above every video we do, no matter what medium you're looking at. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. But above all else, let's all pray for this nation. And like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.